Here to kind of kick off the series that we talked about, where I hope over the next couple of videos I've taken down some notes and I can share some info and hopefully give you some insights around what's kind of worked for me to get me back to the ability to get back to work, be able to travel, gain most of my independence back, or a portion of my independence back. And so there's been a lot learned over the last 2 years, and really I want to be able to kind of share it, because when I first was diagnosed with FND, one of the things that I found is there wasn't much positive content. There wasn't something that I can aspire and say, oh, okay, it's going to take this long, or there is hope. And I want to help people gain hope back in their lives. I know how hard, and I guess that's the first part that I want to focus on really is, conquering the unknown. First of all, everything happened really quickly for me. So in that early period, it literally was a 2-week period of my vision going, and then the loss of speech, and then the kind of drooping of face. But they were the two initial, and then I was hospitalized for a week. And so it was very quick, and then they diagnosed me. I was incredibly fortunate. And that's number one, that early diagnosis of understanding what's wrong with your body, or at least getting a name for this condition, really does help. It actually did help, knowingly or unknowingly, for myself, because I still went through this exploration process, which I'll talk about shortly. But it's understanding what it is rather than going through and just having no idea what is happening and how to start to understand it all. So, well, in my case, I was fortunate enough to find an FND clinic. They just opened it, but it was still 5-6 months before I actually got into the clinic. So I spent several months working with my GP, who also didn't know what FND was till I came in, and was equally as shocked as I was on what that meant for me and what helped. And it was literally, she was then going off my input. So again, understanding what FND is, understanding what resources can help you is so important, but that can't happen till you understand what your symptoms are. And so that's the third early point, is actually starting to just stop. And that didn't happen for a couple of months. So my actual symptoms got worse. I got severe panic attacks and anxiety and spasms and tics. That all started after the hospital. And it was, the symptoms were getting worse, and I couldn't leave the house. I'd literally leave the house to the cafe around the corner, which I had been a million times, and would burst into tears and not burst into spasms, but start getting spasms, full body convulsions, and try to get back home. The fright and the fear and being so scared, that just further compounded everything. So starting to understand what FND is, understanding what you need in way of help, and starting to understand your symptoms, like what are your symptoms? And the thing around that was actually understanding my symptoms was one thing, but then not being as terrified as I was also very, very important. So understanding the symptoms really came about probably several weeks in. So it was past the holidays, probably in early Jan was I kind of starting to grasp, oh my God, these symptoms are coming up. And when I looked up and started again looking at FND and the forums and everything, I was terrified. I read a story about a woman waking up, being paralyzed neck down. I went for months fearful of what would be the new symptom that would come up. And I think, I know that's been one of the most hardest elements of FND to deal with over the last 2+ years, is having that fear. And my fourth last point, as part of this initial kind of episode is really about what helped me and what I'd been doing for the last 2 years largely, which was as soon as I kind of left that hospital, I went to my GP. She became my point of contact, who all the different multidisciplinary people would then kind of send reports to. But then my psychologist, she had no idea what FND was either. She had no experience, but what she did is she focused on the area that was debilitating me the most at that point in time, which was actually not so much, it was my speech, because I couldn't speak properly at all, barely pushing out the words. So speech was definitely one, but it was really immobilizing, having that level of social anxiety. It was horrific. Leaving the house was horrific. The stress and the anxiety and panic that I had of being around people was the hardest. I'm a very social person. I love people. It was so debilitating. And so that was really the area I needed to focus on as soon as possible. And my GP put me on and said, listen, you need to get a psychologist and you need to be working with them from day dot. And I literally have been seeing that same psychologist right up until late last year, where now I've actually just taken a bit of a break to try and get myself back in. But she really helped me throughout this journey of commencing that rewiring of my brain. And, I'll focus more on that on next episode, but understanding that you have FND, what FND is, really understanding what your symptoms are, taking that time to actually not trying to push through. I tried to push through so hard, and that made so much worse. That made it so much worse for my symptoms and for me and my family. And getting that help, which was around the priorities, which was my therapist and my GP. And I want to also note, before I close out, my family have been instrumental. Without my family, I don't know how I would have got this far, honestly, with this condition. And so in reflection, really at the start, those 5 things have been key, and they really, throughout the last 2 years, without doubt, have been fundamental in really conquering the unknown of FND. I hope this episode has been helpful. Stay tuned for my next one. I should get it out soon. Take care. Bye.